Hidden in some of the most desolate and extreme environments on the planet, these remote military bases serve critical roles for their nations. From icy polar bases built for scientific research to military fortresses built deep underground. Join me, we're going to explore 15 of the most fascinating and remote military bases in the world. Number 15. Thule Air Base. Thule Air Base, located on Greenland's icy northwestern coast, is a strategic outpost that serves as a critical, albeit remote, node in the United States missile defense system. Originally constructed in 1951 during the height of the Cold War, Thule was created as a sentinel against the looming threat of intercontinental ballistic missiles, specifically those launched from the Soviet Union over the North Pole. Its location and environment are inseparable from its operational history and present-day mission, which has evolved in the post-war Cold Era but remains essential. Today, Thule's radar tracks satellites and scans limited to 9 months of the year by sea when icebreakers can make a path for supply ships. The challenges of operating in this climate affect everything from day-to-day logistics to emergency responses, as seen during the cleanup following the infamous Broken Arrow incident in 1968, when a B-52 carrying nuclear bombs crashed near Thule. Its barren Arctic surroundings also conceal dangers left over from the Cold War, including unexploded ordnance from missile tests and hazardous wormholes in the permafrost. These are hidden pockets of frozen ice that can collapse underfoot. These remnants, along with the remnants of Cold War infrastructure, serve as a reminder of Thule's original purpose and the enduring presence of the U.S. in a remote corner of the Arctic. Number 14. The Dugway Proving Ground. The Dugway Proving Ground, located southwest of Salt Lake City in Utah, is one of the most unusual military installations in the U.S. Since its inception in world countless tests aimed at understanding and improving defenses against chemical and biological threats. The U.S. military has used it to develop and refine protective gear, such as gas masks and chemical detection systems, making it a training ground for the Army's Chemical Corps, which prepares for potential chemical or biological attacks. All of Dugway's facilities include the $30 million test building, enough to fit small aircraft, where soldiers can practice decontaminating equipment and containing hazardous agents in a controlled environment. While Dugway's role has shifted somewhat with time, it remains a critical asset, as chemical and biological warfare remain a concern. For example, the base is used to evaluate chemical and biological detectors, test drone capabilities for monitoring dangerous sites, and simulate cleanup scenarios that mimic real-world conditions. The Proving Ground is also a place where necessity and caution intersect. It's a remote desert location, and extensive restricted area make it one of the few sites in the world where such a volatile world is a unique staging ground for some of the U.S. military's most advanced missile defense testing. Located in the Pacific Ocean around 2,100 miles southwest of Hawaii, this atoll is part of the Marshall Islands. It consists of 97 small islands spread over an expansive 1,100 square miles, surrounding a central lagoon the size of a large city. The U.S. leases 11 of these islands, with Kwajalein Island serving as the hub of military activity and Mek Island operating as a launch facility. The distance from major population centers and minimal commercial shipping traffic across the surrounding waters mean that missile tests can proceed with minimal risk of public interference. Additionally, radio interference is low, ensuring a clear communication and control over sensitive tests. The atoll has been used to test ballistic missile interceptors like the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, that has even played a role in developing technologies that indirectly contributed to the advent of the Internet. More recent inhabited area of the atoll. To reach Mek Island, the site of the primary launch facilities, workers face a 25-mile commute across the water. And with a small, tight-knit community of U.S. residents, daily life here revolves around a unique mix of cutting-edge military operations and the isolated scenic environment of the Pacific. Number 12. Raven Rock. Raven Rock, officially known as Site R, or the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, is one of the most secretive U.S. military installations, designed to serve as the ultimate backup Pentagon. Dug deep into a mountain along the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, this massive underground facility was built during the Cold War. It's a place that's built to withstand the unthinkable: nuclear strikes, biological attacks, or other catastrophic scenarios. It was constructed in the 1950s. It was born from the Cold War era need for continuity of government. It's a hardened location where top U.S. leaders could survive and maintain command if Washington focuses on countering weapons of mass destruction, along with weather monitoring technology for Air Force One. Though specifics are elusive, the bunker also reportedly holds a suite of advanced technologies designed to support the continuity of government activities. Bunkers like this one are not only intended to protect their inhabitants, but also to isolate them. In the face of a national crisis, Site R becomes a paradox, both a place of refuge and a place that locks its inhabitants away from the outside world. If communications break down or external support systems fail, the isolation intended to protect leaders could also limit their ability to effectively coordinate a response. Number 11. Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia is more than an island. It's one of the most strategically vital and secretive military bases on Earth. It's located in the Indian Ocean, nearly 1,000 miles from the nearest landmass. It's the kind of place most people will never see. But for the U.S. and the Indo-Pacific, Diego Garcia's location is critical. It's halfway between Africa and Southeast Asia, within reach of the Middle East and the southern coast of Asia. In a region where geopolitical tensions run high, Diego Garcia is the center of an invisible network of operations. The island's role, though, has evolved over the decades. Originally leased to the United States in the 1960s, it became essential during the Cold War, allowing for rapid U.S. military response to any Soviet activity in the Indian Ocean. But it became a central base for operations again after 2001. It is one of only 2 U.S. bomber bases in the Indo-Pacific, giving the U.S. the ability to deploy heavy bombers like the B-1s and B-52s. It is accessible only by military flights, and even the few civilians who work there have to undergo rigorous security screenings. The island functions as a sort of self-contained world with its own power plants, water supplies, and airstrips, all heavily fortified and protected. Access to and information about Diego Garcia's mainland that it is to Alaska. Originally established during World War II as an airfield for U.S. bombers, Ericsson's role evolved throughout the Cold War and beyond, becoming a silent sentinel in the northern Pacific for monitoring threats and safeguarding American skies. The heart of Ericsson's operations is the Cobra Dane radar system. This is an immense 120-foot-tall structure that permanently faces westward. This radar, built in 1976 to support Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, is one of the most powerful of its kind. It uses a phased array radar composed of over 34,000 elements to keep a constant watch over a 2,000-mile corridor into Russian airspace. This unique design allows the Cobra Dane to detect missile launches, track up to 120 targets, and maintain precise data on up to 20 of them. This Cobra Dane also plays a role in space surveillance, tracking space debris within a range of over 28,000 miles and storing data on over 12,000 objects. This is Cobra Dane in an ideal location for monitoring potential Russian threats and tracking satellites, yet also makes it vulnerable to the elements and difficult to access. Fog often makes landings dangerous and limits Ericsson's use as a divert airfield for emergency landings. Nevertheless, though, the U.S. military values the station's strategic position for potential defense and needs in the region. Number 9. The Yulin Naval Base. The Yulin Naval Base, located on Hainan's island's southern coast near Sanya, is an exceptionally fortified and strategically valuable asset within China's maritime defense and power projection ambitions in the South China Sea. Built into rugged coastal mountains, the base houses facilities specifically designed for nuclear submarines, including a submarine tunnel system that allows subs to remain shielded from satellite observation. These subs, which can carry intercontinental ballistic missiles, are a critical component of China's nuclear triad, providing second strike capability on island is no coincidence. This position places Yulin within easy reach of key shipping lanes in the South China Sea and allows China to project power over regional neighbors and monitor foreign naval activities. The surrounding region is heavily fortified with electronic warfare systems and nearby air bases. This layered defense makes it challenging for any adversary to approach or threaten Yulin without substantial logistical resources. As a dual-purpose base, though, Yulin facilitates traditional military objectives, such as force projection and deterrence in the South China Sea, and it serves as a hub for advancing naval technology, potentially including autonomous platforms that could patrol contested areas or engage in reconnaissance missions. Number 8. Keflavik Air Base. Naval Air Station Keflavik, positioned on the southwestern peninsula of Iceland, has long been a key player in both U.S. and NATO defense operations, especially throughout the Cold War. Built initially during World War II, the NATO defense mission returned in 1951 under the Iceland Defense Force Agreement, a NATO arrangement that reinforced the island nation's neutrality while safeguarding it from potential Soviet influence. Through the decades, the Naval Air Station Keflavik became central to American and NATO anti-submarine operations, with rotational deployments on aircraft like the P-3 Orion. Now, one of Keflavik's unique aspects was its integrated civilian and military functions. With Iceland's civilian international airport sharing its grounds, the base operated under atypical conditions for a military facility. This arrangement led to occasional security challenges as Soviet espionage activities were reportedly carried out under diplomatic cover through the Soviet embassy in Reykjavik during the Cold War. Over time, though, heightened security measures and the construction of a dedicated civilian terminal helped address those concerns. While the base closed in 2006, in 2016 U.S. forces returned, refurbishing NAS Keflavik to support Tufik Space Base. The Tufik Space Base, located in the stark Arctic wilderness of northwest Greenland, is the northernmost military installation of the United States. Originally it was known as Thule Air Base, the outpost is a mere 750 miles from the Arctic Circle, positioned with a rare advantage for tracking objects in polar orbits. This remote vantage point makes it a unique asset for space surveillance. From its origins during the Cold War to its modern role in space defense, Ptufik serves as a guardian of the high Arctic, where the extreme environment only intensifies its strategic significance. In this isolated region, the base hosts the 12th Space Warning Squadron, a unit responsible for missile detection through the Ballistic Missile Early Warning System, which tracks potential threats in collaboration with NORAD. Here, the 23rd Space Operations Squadron operates tracking stations that connect with polar orbiting satellites to maintain a round-the-clock watch on space traffic. This base experiences long, severe missile and satellite tracking data are routed to command centers like Peterson Space Force Base, informing a broader U.S. and Allied defense system. Furthermore, its facilities support other high Arctic installations, including weather stations in the region. With a staff mix of U.S. and Danish personnel, Ptufik exemplifies international Arctic cooperation, maintaining a constant military presence where few can even survive. Number 6. Mount Yamantau. Mount Yamantau, a tall 5,300-foot peak in Russia's southern Ural Mountains, is not just another scenic location on the map. It's known to the locals as Yamantau, or Evil Mountain. The rugged terrain and wild nature in this region reflect the mountain's ominous reputation. Rising from the Beloretsky district of Bashkortostan, Yamantau is both geographically commanding and strategically concealed. The mountain has two main plateaus, Big Yamantau at 5,380 feet and Small Yamantau at 49. Satellite imagery has captured vast excavation projects in and around Yamantau. Despite inquiries, though, Russia has offered only cryptic explanations. Some officials claim that the complex is a mining site, others say it's a storage facility for Russian treasures, and still others describe it as a vast bunker in preparation for nuclear war. Well, given the Cold War context in which the site was developed, those varying explanations have done little to dispel suspicions that Yamantau harbors a secret defense infrastructure, akin to the United States' Cheyenne Mountain Complex. By the late 1990s, a United States congressional report cited the deception and denial policy surrounding Yamantau as inconsistent with the era's international cooperation, fueling Western concerns about the site's true purpose. Mezgorai's residents are believed to maintain infrastructure that could serve both defensive and survival needs, pointing to the potential for an underground command center equipped for crisis scenarios. It's located about 100 miles southeast of Fairbanks. This remote base is a linchpin in America's missile defense strategy. Fort Greely was born in the midst of World War II, when the U.S. Army established the Big Delta Army Airfield to support the Lend-Lease Act. The base served as a critical transit point for supplying the Soviet Union against Germany and Japan, connecting with the Alaska Highway to streamline transport. Following the war, the U.S. recognized the need to equip soldiers for cold weather combat, leading to the creation of the Arctic Test Branch at Fort Greely in 1949. This branch became a center for testing equipment and training soldiers in Arctic conditions, eventually evolving into the Cold Regions Test Center. The severe environment around Fort Greely quickly made it a hub for cold weather testing. Through the post-war years and Cold War, the base hosted Task Force Frigid and Task Force Willowaw, which tested military capabilities against extreme cold. The Cold Regions Test Center was established to carry on the operations to host interceptor missiles aimed at defending the country from long-range missile threats. Construction of this missile defense system marked a new era for Fort Greely, positioning it as a critical shield against potential attacks. Additionally, Fort Greely's isolation extends beyond geographic considerations. The freezing conditions and limited access roads creates a physical barrier that's difficult to breach. That's a strategic advantage in safeguarding the base's sensitive missile defense operations. In essence, the very landscape that makes life difficult at Fort Greely is also what makes it so secure. Number 4. Pine Gap. Hiding away in the heart of Australia's desert near Alice Springs, Pine Gap is one of the world's most secretive surveillance bases. Officially known as the Joint Defense Facility Pine Gap, this installation is an unparalleled collaboration between the United States and Australia, and its remote location is far more than a geographic convenience. It's a shield of military significance. When it opened in 1970, Pine Gap was focused on intercepting signals from Russian and Chinese missile tests. Since then, though, Pine Gap's role has evolved dramatically. Once primarily dedicated to monitoring missile launches, it's now a critical player in identifying and tracking electronic signals worldwide. The facility has grown from a few antennas to a network of nearly 40 radomes, or protective domes, housing satellite dishes that capture and relay information across the world. The partnership between Australia and the United States has made Pine Gap one of the Five Eyes' most valuable intelligence assets. This site's ability to geolocate electronic signals enables it to pinpoint the source of activities of interest, such as mobile phone signals, which could then guide operations targeting adversaries. The dual use of Pine Gap's intelligence capability has led to public protests and political debates within Australia, as the base's involvement in lethal operations contrasts sharply with Australia's traditionally signals intercepted here feed into the broader intelligence network of the Five Eyes Alliance, which includes the United States, Australia, the United Kingdom, Canada, and New Zealand. Number 3. Camp Century. We're back to Greenland. In the vast frozen landscape lies one of the Cold War's most audacious military undertakings, Camp Century. Established in 1959, the camp was an example of American ingenuity and ambition, a city beneath the ice, powered by a nuclear reactor and intended to house some of the world's most powerful weaponry. Officially promoted as a research station, its true purpose, Project Iceworm, was concealed from the public and even from the Danish government that owned Greenland. More than half a century after its abandonment, Camp Century remains both a symbol of Cold War secrecy and a looming environmental concern. Located in Greenland's ice sheet, roughly 150 miles from Thule Air Force Base and about 800 miles from the North Pole, the camp was not only remote but impressive 1,100 feet long, providing the main thoroughfare for movement between the different sections of the base. The base was also unique for its reliance on the PM-2A, a mobile nuclear reactor capable of providing consistent power regardless of the temperature. This small reactor was essential to Camp Century's operations, powering lights, heating systems, and scientific equipment. For a brief moment, the camp represented a self-contained city capable of housing 200 soldiers and scientists as they worked, ate, and even socialized within this frozen structure. The idea of Camp Century was audacious. The Arctic conditions proved insurmountable. As the ice moved unpredictably, the carefully constructed tunnels began to warp, threatening the stability of the base. The engineering challenges quickly became overwhelming, and the risks far outweighed the benefits. By 1966, it was clear that Project Iceworm was neither feasible nor cost-effective, and the U.S. military abandoned the project. Number 2. Barb's multiple squadrons, notably the 337th Squadron operating Lynx Mk-86 helicopters, and the 339th Squadron flying Bell 412 SP helicopters, both of which are critical for Norway's defensive and support roles. Additionally, it's home to the Royal Norwegian Air Force Flight Training School, which has trained generations of Norwegian pilots, further embedding the station's role as a central part of their defense ecosystem. The base shares its runways with Bardufoss Airport, allowing Norwegian Air Shuttle to connect to the remote region with Oslo through regular flights. Civilian operations also include the Norwegian Aviation College and local flying and parachute clubs. During World War II, though, its location became significant. It was initially used by the British Royal Air Force in the Norwegian campaign, with the Gloucester Gladiators and Hawker Hurricanes launching from its runways to counter German forces. After the Allies withdrew from Norway, German forces took control, transforming it into a launch pad for attacks on the vital convoys that were supplying the Soviet Union. The Siachen Glacier is an expanse of ice and rock unlike any other on Earth. This 47-mile-long glacier, located in the Karakoram range of the Himalayas, is a formidable force of nature. It stretches over 18,000 feet above sea level near Indira Kol on the India-China border, down to 11,800 feet, cutting through some of the most rugged landscapes on the planet. Lying south of the Eurasian Plate Indian subcontinent divide, the glacier rests between the towering peaks of the Karakoram to the east and the Saltoro Ridge to the west, both marked by dizzying altitudes. The glacier's remote setting has led to the construction of a network of outposts, camps, and even pipelines. Since 1984, India has maintained a presence on Siachen, building over 100 outposts along the Saltoro Ridge and laying oil pipelines nearly 155 miles long. Each winter, heavy snow blocks access, and helicopters become the only viable means of transport here. Now, while the primary focus at Siachen has been suggested by environmentalists and peace advocates to protect its fragile ecosystem, since Siachen lies close to the Karakoram Wildlife Sanctuary and Pakistan's Central Karakoram National Park, the establishment of a joint park could create a protected corridor. Species like snow leopards, ibex, and the Tibetan wolves inhabit the surrounding valleys and ridges. They face risks from climate change and the footprint of human activity. The Peace Park proposal envisions Siachen as a sanctuary where researchers from both India and Pakistan could work together. In recent years, the Indian government has opened limited access to trekking and mountaineering expeditions in the area, and this initiative has allowed those trekkers to experience the stark beauty of Siachen, while also showcasing India's operational capability along the Saltoro Ridge. As temperatures drop, though, these temporary visitors glimpse the harsh realities faced by those who have spent weeks, months, or even years in this frozen fortress. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.